Jones! Bowden! He's got it! England have won the World Cup by the barest of margins!
Well, I hope that brings back some good memories from 2005 and also, of course, from last summer, 2019 World Cup final there. And I'm delighted to say we have got our first really premier guest on this show. Joe Root has joined us today. So thank you very much, Joe, for joining us. I thought you'd like a little bit of applause there because you haven't had much during the summer, no crowds or anything to respect or enjoy your performances. Actually, great to have you on. So thanks very much for joining us. How are you? Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys? Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this. Should be good fun.
And so you've had Simon Mann, of course, with us as well. So you've had, as I said, you've had a weird sort of few months playing with no crowd behind closed doors. What's the hardest thing about that?
I think my first experience of it was I walked out to bat for the first time this summer, and I walked out on a hat-trick ball, and it was just deadly silent, and I didn't really know how to sort of react to that. It was almost worse, having been in that situation before, because normally you've got something to really get you going and feel like it gets you in the game, a bit of an atmosphere to feed off, and especially a home crowd. You always look forward to playing Test summers in England because of that lively, bubbly atmosphere you get within the grounds, and that wasn't there. So it did take a little bit of an adjustment in that respect, and I think you've probably noticed it the most when the games started to, when you were in the field and the games felt like they were starting to meander along a little bit, or there was a quite substantial partnership building, where the crowd can actually have quite an impact on the group and can give you a real lift, or really create something that you might not necessarily be able to create on the field. So it was, I suppose, managing those pockets of play and those times within games as best we could as players, knowing that it was going to be tough, and trying to find other ways of making sure we were always on it throughout any session or any difficult passage of play.
I see Frank Pello says, did you miss that distinct sound of Root?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, always. It's it took a while to get used to. I thought it was the pantomime villain for a long time, but it's certainly something I look forward to hearing again, hopefully.
I tried to find some, actually. I looked through YouTube, and there's one of some Barmy Army singing the song in, I think it's in Hamilton, somewhere where you got a century in New Zealand. They all did a little rendition of it, and someone filmed it. And I was going to try and download that, but I sort of failed. So I'm sorry. You'll just have to have a little bit more of that, just to sort of rekindle the memories of those amazing moments. And welcome to everybody else on this show, by the way. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've managed to get through the Patreon sort of rather complicated system of sign up. I promise you there'll be lots of other good events like this coming up. And obviously it's also for this cause, the Professional Cricketers Trust as well. So the profits from this series are going to go to that very, very noble cause, keeping a lot of disadvantaged players over the last few years in sort of some kind of support. It's a brilliant charity, and thanks to Joe for giving up his time today to try and help raise money for that. You can post comments on the chat box and also ask questions. We'll do our own little bit of questioning as well. Just to sort of kick things off, I thought I'd just play you a little bit, probably without sound here. I apologize, and that's my fault for the sort of technical lacking that I have. But we're just going to look at a little bit of some analysis I did of your 250 odd that you made against Pakistan 3 or 4 years ago, just to remind you of some great moments of your career. So this is Old Trafford, of course, for those of you who may not remember that. And I'm just going to play you a little bit of this innings. So here you go. This is Joe walking off actually after celebrating his 100. And then I basically talk about the discipline, selectivity and concentration that you showed through the innings, the trigger movement at the start here, which involves a little step back into the crease, and then trying to play as many shots as possible right in amongst your eye, under your eye, rather than being drawn outside the off stump to play shots at balls which are a little bit wider. And if you just look at some of the controlled shots here, the defence very late, waiting for the ball to come onto him, and actually picking up a single there as well. And then this is interesting. I think the concentration, your routine, walking away after each ball, then coming back in and marking your guard, and then three little taps of the bat, 1, 2, 3, and then you switch on again to the bowlers. This was, of course, the Pakistani attack, which was mainly left arm over, and the discipline you showed outside of stump was extremely good there. And you waited for the right ball, fuller and straighter, and then hit it down the ground as a result. And also played the beautiful shot off the back foot, that little force off the back foot. Against the spinners, you never tried to drive the ball, always tried to work it through the leg side. And there's the wagon wheel of all those little pushes on the leg side for 1s and 2s, no expansive drives being tempted by Yasir Shah. And then this is a little bit I quite like, is the interception points of this innings. The yellow balls you want to look out for, because the ones off the back foot, when they were a little bit short and wide, the yellow ones were hit on the up, sort of on the back foot through the extra cover, sort of cover region, square the wicket. And then the yellow ones on the front foot, driven through extra off the front foot, but nothing in the middle, no yellow balls in that middle area, which could have been a good length, which could have been a dangerous delivery. So great judgment there, and great discipline and great concentration for what was absolutely outstanding innings. Don't you agree? Is that in fact your the innings that you would go to if you had to look at an innings for one that would give you confidence, a high point? Would that be one?
It would be one, or it'd be up there for sure. Like you mentioned, I think actually coming into that game, in the first Test match at Lords, I played 2 pretty average shots to get out. I think it was caught sweeping top edge first innings and caught deep square leg hooking or pulling in the second innings. So I'd copped a little bit of flack. We were 1-0 down in the series, and wanted to really make a mark in the second Test match and try and find us a way back into the series. So it was I did work extremely hard. I remember quite vividly working hard with Ramps, who's a brilliant batting coach. Did a lot of really good stuff with my game throughout his period as an England coach, but he was very good round the wicket at trying to simulate left arm seamers, and we spent ages working on those angles, because they didn't have, apart from Amir, most of the other 2 left armers within that attack didn't generally swing the ball back in. So we worked a lot on getting across onto off stump, so I could leave a lot better and know that anything outside my right eye was an easy leave, and sort of work my game back from there. So I made sure it was very simple and clear how I wanted to construct that innings, and try and minimize risk as much as possible.
How much have you changed your game in recent years, Joe? Technically, you were working on something towards the end of last year, weren't you? In New Zealand, for example, or before New Zealand.
Yeah, I think as a player and over time, and especially now with the amount of analysis and data that teams have, you have to constantly keep looking to evolve your game. If you keep playing in the same way, teams very quickly find trends and ways and patterns in which you get out. So, of course, you don't want to revamp and completely pull apart your technique and try and start again. But there are certain things that have to keep moving forward. And, over time that if you get out in three or four occasions in a similar fashion, teams will be looking at that and will be bowling more balls in that area, or trying to use that as a real weapon to get you out. So if you feel like there are flaws or deficiencies within your game, or areas that aren't quite as up to scratch as possible, you have to find ways of dealing with that. And sometimes that does mean making minor adjustments in trigger movements or contact points, even shot selection to a degree as well, trying to play that long almost longer version of cat and mouse, not just within the test match, but also within a calendar year or a series. And I think it's quite an interesting part. It's something that I actually really enjoy about the game, is that you can't just bat one way all the time, or you can't just look to play the same way throughout. You've got to keep looking to improve, got to keep looking to evolve your game, and not just marry up to the conditions that are in front of you, but also be very aware at how sides are going to get you out, and how they will be looking to get you out.
So does that mean you actually spend a fair bit of time looking at your own game and sort of thinking, how can I just tweak it? You know, looking at other bowlers and what they might be looking to do, and therefore it's almost like homework, is it, in a way?
It is, yeah. I mean, I sent an email to our analyst at the start of the week, and I said, I want to get, if you could please send me the over, I think it was over the last 2 years, the how or all my modes of dismissal, and I want to look for a few trends within that, and I want to specifically know if there's any sort of pattern between 0 and 20, and also between 50 and 80 as well, if there are any trends there. So just always trying to find ways in, if there are certain elements of my game that seem to be constantly worked over and I've not got the right answers for, I can go back and look at that and try and find ways of improving that for the future.
Have you had the analysis back, or does it take a while to put all that together? And
I've not actually had it back yet, so
yeah.
I'll be looking for that. Hopefully it'll come in the next week or so, which we'll be back, hopefully back training in a week or two's time. So it'll give me a good couple of weeks to look at it and start putting things in place and into practice before we get out playing some cricket again.
I remember I used to be quite friendly with Jeff Marsh, the father of Mitchell and Sean Marsh. I played with him in Australia, and he told me a funny story once about rooming with David Boone, and he woke up in the middle of the night, sort of conscious of something happening in the room, and it was David Boone naked with his batting gloves and his bat, rehearsing his back foot defence or something in the mirror. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting you get up naked in the middle of the night to do that, but are you a great shadow batter, sort of looking in the mirror to see if everything's aligned when you've got a spare moment?
I will tinker about with things, generally with clothes on, but I will shadow bat on occasions, whether it be around the house or in the dressing room or around practice. And I've always felt within my own game, I've liked to see how things feel. So I will watch, and I will I'll look at certain elements of things and talk to a lot of coaches, but generally it's always been a feel thing, and I that's how I sort of understand my game the best, I suppose, is by trying different things out, trying and picking my hands up in different areas and working it through that way.
We talked a bit about batting, Joe. Let's talk about captaincy and perhaps look at some of the questions that have come in as well. It's great to have everyone with us. Please ask your questions. Here's one from Alex Gaywood. Headingley 2090. Well, what a strange Test match that was. The downs and then the ups. As captain, how did your emotions change during the day? How many times did you think the match was gone? And when did you believe Jack Leach, with a little help from Ben Stokes, would see England home? That's a question from Alex Gaywood.
Well, it wasn't just the day, it was the whole game. It was a roller coaster of emotions. I remember winning the toss, bowling Australia out for under 200 and thinking, we've got a really good opportunity to win this Test match. And having with it very quickly within 2 sessions or a session and a bit, we were back in the field and really up against it with the series on the line. My emotions did change quite drastically. But then you fast forward to that day, and we'd battled very hard to get into a position going into the 4th day to still be within, still have an opportunity to win the game. And was pretty confident actually at the start of it. With me and Ben still at the crease, we knew if we could put 50, 60 on, it would really put them under pressure. And we knew that we'd already put good overs into their bowlers the day before. And it would just be about, if we can grind 20 overs into their seamers, we would get plenty of good scoring opportunities, and the game would open up for us. Fact was, it didn't quite materialise like that. And I remember speaking to Jack just before he went out, and I said, well, ever there's two players there, we've got an opportunity to win this game. And he looked at me with a very blank face, sort of half nodded and just walked out. And what happened after that, I mean, I was sat in a room. Joss had sort of half taken his shirt off, and he couldn't quite manage to get it back on. He was in some sort of he was just so engrossed in the game. Stuart the viewing gallery at Headingley is really short, so the ceiling for Stuart's about here. Every time we hit boundary, his head would go through one of the plasterboards above him. And it was just chaos. We had guys. So Joe Denley wouldn't leave the toilets. He'd stood in the toilets throughout different points where we got good partnerships. So he was just wandering around the toilets, didn't watch a ball, was just listening to crowd reaction and to the commentary on the, whether it be on the radio or the television. And yeah, there was a few lads also in the physio room that would refuse to move, because cricketers do seem to be quite suspicious.
Superstitious, yeah.
Superstitious, sorry. Yeah, it was, just a phenomenal passage of plays. Everything from that point that Jack walked out to us, or Ben hitting the winning runs, seemed to fall in our favour, and made, the atmosphere within the ground was something that I thought the World Cup final was something that would never be replicated in terms of an atmosphere to play in. And that was at least on a par with it. It was incredible. To see just to see everyone be so involved in the game, and I'm sure the crowd had a huge impact on the guys out there in the field, whether it be Ben and the other guys batting, or whether it be the Australian players, because it was just electric. It really was. It gives me goosebumps just sat here talking about it now. It's definitely one of the most exciting games of cricket I think I will ever be involved in or watch.
What about when that ball hit the pad? Nathan Lyon right near the end against Ben Stokes.
I wasn't too worried. I thought it was going down, actually. I genuinely thought, no, it's not spun. That's going down the leg side. That's fine. And when they reviewed the one before, I did think that there was, because they got it wrong, and so badly wrong, that there was something going to happen like that. And I was worried. I was actually worried that because they'd used their reviews, the umpire would be in favour of them and say, well, we've got a chance to review it. And thankfully, that wasn't the case. And Joel Wilson will forever be England's favourite umpire, I think.
Yeah. Should just say hello to a few people who've joined here. Dorothy Betts is here, saying hello to Joe from Sheffield. I know she runs the Sheffield Cricket Lover Society, and your granddad Don is always there. He might be joining at some point as well. I think he said he's having a bit of trouble with the technology at the moment, so he's not sure whether he's going to join or not. Andy Hamilton, hello. Jacob Matthew, JJ Hassan, lots of people coming and saying things. Will Gould, he was here last time, I remember. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Sorry we haven't mentioned everybody. And you mentioned, Joe, there about the great crowd of Headingley and that incredible atmosphere. And you've had this summer as a total contrast. We talked a little bit about how it was to play in front of no crowd. But what about playing in the biosecure bubble? Is it going to be in the future, do you think, a situation where people are going to have to miss certain matches because the pressure of being sort of isolated like that for long periods is pretty tough?
Yeah, I think Morgs came out actually and said something quite open and honest this week about it, and I completely agree. I don't think there's much longevity in it. It does wear you down over a period of time, being away from family, being such a high intense environment for long periods of time like that, and feel like you're it's the same for everyone in many respects in terms of your freedom to an extent has been taken away from you with this virus. But when it's away from your family, and even little things like being able to just go to the shops and or go out and play golf, which are all within the rules at the moment. We weren't able to do it over a period of time. It is, especially when you wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m. when the ground staff are mowing the outfield, and you open the curtains, and you just can't seem to get away from the game. And if you've had a rough day the day before, over a period of time, it can have a significant effect. And I think probably one of the most frustrating things about this summer was for the cricket lovers that would normally be at those games. And you think of some of the milestones and some of the real special moments that this summer has produced. They've been taken away from a live audience. Jimmy and Broady hitting those magic milestones. Some of the innings from the young batters and from Ben in the Test matches, along with speak about Dawood in the T20 format and Joss Butler, and similarly, Sam Billings 100 against Australia. I thought that was a wonderful innings, and some brilliant matches throughout that unfortunately weren't able to be enjoyed as you normally would. So there are a number of things that have been quite frustrating. From a playing side of thing, I think mentally, not just for a period of time. So say like this summer, I think it's the prolonged thing. So there's a number of guys that will have gone from playing in a biosecure bubble this summer straight to an IPL, who could then be expected to go straight to South Africa, have a period of time at home, maybe 2 weeks. Within that, would have to start isolating, ready for the next tour to Sri Lanka, and then straight to India. If that all goes ahead as planned, that does not give guys enough time to be human beings in my eyes. You've got to allow people to recharge, refresh themselves, and ultimately playing for England is a huge honour and a huge privilege. And everyone that I've in this current environment is very grateful and understands the enormity and the care that goes into having, or the pride that goes into having that responsibility. But you never want guys being or having that opportunity and not being able to give absolutely everything when they go out and walk out onto that field. You want them to be right up for it and 100% committed to the cause. And I think there will be occasions where players will have to be quite honest and say, look, I'm finding things hard at the moment. And as management and as captains and senior players, guys will have to understand that that's part and parcel of the current climate that we're playing in, the current world that we're playing cricket in. It's not always, it might not be that we can get through a winter playing our best 11 or have our best squad available throughout the whole period.
Just one other question sort of about this summer. I remember being in Australia at Perth in the Ashes and walking down Adelaide Terrace in the centre of Perth to go out for dinner, and I heard your voice behind me walking up the road. It was the day before the third test, and obviously you were captain, and you were walking. I said, "What are you doing?" And you said you were walking to a deli to buy food for your family, to cook for them before the play, because you were staying in these self-catering apartments. I just thought that was an amazing thing, that England captain wasn't sending out a lackey or some takeaway person or getting a Deliveroo or whatever. You were buying food yourself to cook yourself. So I just wondered, is there anything in lockdown that you discovered about your cooking? Have you come up with a new recipe? Have you got anything you can recommend?
I've spent periods of it working on different things, trying to make some homemade burgers and trying to perfect those for at the start of lockdown when we were in had some good weather, we were outside trying to perfect a decent burger for whenever it is we get an opportunity to host people again. I've more recently tried to perfect a good steak. Been tinkering with different ways to do that.
So meat orientated,
we've
basically.
actually,
anyway, you're not going on a plant-based diet yet.
Yeah.
No plant-based diet for you then.
No, I'm not. I've just seen someone comment that a lot of root vegetables always seems to come up that. Oh, that's so classic. Very good, Bernie. But yeah, it's just I suppose just we've actually got a Thermomix more recently, so we've been trying a few recipes within that, and it makes life a lot easier. There's not a lot of skill required for that, but yeah, just been trying to try things in there. So it's
And
it's
how's
something to look forward to, I suppose.
while we're on the sort of family thing, how's your little boy's golf swing and bat swing? Because he was looking pretty good a few months ago.
He's not played as he's not been playing as much cricket recently. He's obsessed with being a pirate at the moment. So the only swing is from
it's a samurai sword then, is it, at the moment, rather than a bat? Okay.
It is, but yeah, so we've been throughout different parts of the summer and been around the house pretending to be pirates and in the garden digging up buried treasure. So that's the stage we're at the moment with Alf. But I'm sure at some point he'll want to pick up a bat and ball again. But as long as he's happy and smiling and enjoying himself, that'll do for me.
I'm going to show you a picture actually. If I can just share the screen here, I'll just show you a little picture of one I found. Sorry, it takes a little bit of time. It's a bit clunky, this. Right. See that? Remember that?
I can't see it, I'm afraid.
Oh.
I don't know whether it's my
Can you see it, Simon?
I can see it, yeah. It's a little blonde lad playing a forcing shot through the offside with a Sheffield United shirt on, by the looks of it.
It's I think it's a shot I got out of a book that you contributed to or something, and it's you and I think it's Billy keeping wicket with enormous pads on, and you've got your Sheffield United shirt on and pads. Actually, it looks like you played and missed at an attempted hook. It's a nice picture anyway. Sorry that you can't see that.
No, it's all right. I know which one you mean. Yeah, it's a lot of
well,
fun.
hopefully the guests, the attendees saw it.
Let's take up some more of our viewers' questions. Ian Wigster, I mean, this is an interesting one. What are the main differences, do you think, Joe? So it's a way off now, and there's still a bit to come with Sri Lanka, India at home, etc. And I mean, presumably those games are played, of course. What are the main differences in how you'll approach next year's Ashes series as a captain from the previous tour?
It's a good question, that.
It is a very good question, and it's something that we worked very hard on looking at what we need to do if we're going to be successful there. And you look at the way we've set the team up currently, and a lot of that is around how we want to perform out there. We will need to score big runs and bat long periods of time. And we've invested time in young players that we believe are good enough to be able to do that, and a batting group that should be more consistent of going out and scoring scores of over 400 plus. And you need to do it in the first innings under pressure and set the game up. So that's something that we've tried to put a big emphasis on since the last Ashes series, and feel that we've actually made big strides on. We've hit 400 plus a number of times in the recent past, and I think that's reflected in some of the results within as well. And similarly, I think you look at how we've tried to factor in a little bit more pace to complement what are our main strengths as a bowling group and a seam group, likes of the consistent performance like Jimmy, Broady, Wokesy and Sam Curran, and of that ilk who are not quite as quick. I think over there you do need impact bowlers like likes of Jofra, Mark Wood, who can offer something when nothing's happening. There's a number of other good young players in and around that have shown promise, likes of Ollie Stone, who I think is a very exciting prospect when he's fit, and hopefully he can get some good cricket under his belt before then. But it's all the time you're trying to balance between the current conditions and the current series you're within and looking forward, and it's something that we've paid quite particular attention to of late, and we'll continue to over the course of I think what it is 12 test matches or just over going into that first one at Brisbane.
Although, just a point about that. I mean, Simon and I both were at the 2011 series, which obviously England won in Australia, and actually the bowling attack there was quite an English attack. I mean, Brezzy lad did really well, didn't he? And obviously Jimmy. I think we had Chris Tremlett, who had a bit of extra sort of bounce clearly, and Steve Finn played a few of those tests. So in a way, I suppose you can get lured into thinking that you need rapid pace. Whereas, I mean, the Australian attack is a hostile attack, but you wouldn't necessarily. Not all the bowlers are 90 miles an hour.
No, and you look at why they had elements of success in England in the last series, and it was because they were relentless in the areas they bowled. For long periods of time, they'd run in and they'd hit an area with an occasional bouncer. It wasn't hard to work out what they were trying to do and how they were trying to operate. They'd use short, sharp spells. They'd come on and, they'd be generally quite patient and try and hopefully get something from the surface. And they knew if they'd live and tested our defence for long periods of time, then they back themselves to get some reward. And on English wickets, that you're always going to get a little bit of movement. In Australia, you don't get so much movement, so you have to be even more relentless with that.
Yeah, sure. And the Kookaburra ball as
look
well.
How when they have Stark within there. Yeah, and their approach changes when Stark comes into the team. They have someone that can bowl with extra bit of pace and will look to try and blow the tail away in particular and use reverse swing later on in an innings. But ultimately, he just attacks. It doesn't matter to them if he goes at 4 and over. But they're hoping that once a spell, he picks up a wicket and opens the door for the other guys. And I think it's important to look at how teams operate in their own environments, and you don't want to copy teams. You want to do it your own way, and you want to use your strengths. But ultimately, if there are things that you find, or you've got players that are very good at similar ways of performing and executing skills that can be successful over there, then we should definitely, not be shy or embarrassed to learn from a team who, in their own conditions, are a very difficult side to beat and have been for a number of years. And look back at that series as well and think how much of a hole Ben left not being available. He's 2 players in one in many respects, and the balance of our team had to change quite drastically without us having any sort of games where he wasn't available. So we had we didn't have much chance to get used to it leading into that series.
Just a related question, is that, I suppose, are we sometimes almost over obsessed by Ashes and winning in Australia when actually winning in India is probably as hard, and that comes first? So I suppose a simpler question would be, which is tougher, a tour to India or a tour to Australia?
I think they're on a level playing field, to be honest. I think the romance of an Ashes series and the history and everything that goes with it will always mean that it's hyped up more and make it a more enticing thing to be able to say you've gone to Australia and won a series. I think anyone that's won over in India will say that has got to be up there with some of their biggest achievements. And it's certainly something that we, as I said, we are preparing extremely hard for. But again, the principles of how I explained what we need to do to be successful in Australia apply there as well. It just in a slightly different way. You need to score big first innings runs because the wickets do deteriorate. It does get a lot harder second innings. A 40 or a 50 could be worth 190 in the first innings in many ways because of how extreme the conditions get quite quickly. So, of course, you balance the side and the amount of spin you might want within, and reverse swing can play a huge part with the ball. But in terms of how we want to operate and how we want to set things up, it doesn't change a huge amount in terms of our game plan. It might just with slight personnel within.
It's just, what about you? Andy Hamilton says, think we'd accept losing to India if we stuff the Aussies. Yes, we all want to stuff the Aussies, of course. Simon, sorry.
No, I was just thinking about, talk about playing in India and Australia. What about captaining in Australia and India? the tours there last time were difficult. Is it much harder in one than the other? Is this sort of that Aussie focus just so relentless? India, although you can't sort of get out that much, you can perhaps you're not as aware of sort of being against a nation as you are in Australia when you go there for an Ashes tour.
Yeah, I mean, I'm yet to experience that in India as a captain. As a player, certainly, it's. I'd say that there's just a genuine love for cricket within India, and you can really see that within the grounds. It's there's not I wouldn't say hatred, but the animosity towards the England team from Indian fans that you might get from an Australian public or within a ground in an Ashes series. So one thing that I remember quite vividly from my first tour to India was when I was 12th man at Mumbai, and Sachin Tendulkar was batting at 4. Pujara got out. There was about half the ground in at the time, and it erupted. England had got a wicket, and a very an Indian crowd erupted because Sachin was about to walk out to bat, and within 20 minutes the ground was full. Which it was quite breathtaking, really, to see how big an influence he'd had on Indian cricket. And then when we got him out, it was empty again. But that's you can see the passion for cricket and for their superstars when you go over there and play. And I think when you go to Australia, there's obviously some mad cricket fans over there. But they certainly enjoy giving out plenty of banter towards the players, as well as supporting their own team.
What's that like? Does it feel relentless? I'm just sort of wondering what it's like being an England captain when you must, that sense of 16 people or however many your tour party against a whole nation, against this barrage of not always abuse, but the sense that everyone is against you.
Yeah, I think if you can get through the first Test match mentally, I know it's something that we've struggled to do historically in terms of winning in Brisbane and even getting a draw. But if you can mentally get through it, then it gives you a huge boost, I suppose, or a realization that you can still perform in, against an environment which is very much against you, whether that be collectively or individually. And I suppose one of the things I've found having played there in the past is you probably find yourself a little bit more isolated than you might do elsewhere, in terms of you're walking out or out to bat, or in certain situations within a game. That atmosphere can make you feel like you're dealing with things on your own rather than with the 11 of the guys or the squad of players that are around you. And something very aware of for next time we go there is making sure that none of our team ever feel like they're in that position. Also look back at that last series, and there were a lot of things off the field that we were dealing with and had to manage, which some were avoidable, definitely, but some have seemed to spiral out of control and be taken completely out of context or made a bigger deal of than they needed to be, which made life a lot easier for individuals on that tour and for us as a team collectively. So I suppose a big part of performing well over there is managing the off the field stuff extremely well, and having a really good understanding of the media pressures that an Ashes tour away from home brings over any other series you might be involved in. And that's very hard to educate young players that have never experienced that before. So of course there'll be a number of guys that going on their first Ashes tour to Australia this time round, and all you really want them to do is to try and embrace it and not feel like they're dealing with it on their own.
Actually, I suppose one other thing in a way is if you can win early on, then in the end, both in India and Australia, the locals sort of tend to turn on their own people. I'm just thinking of that 501 for one or 517 for one in Brisbane, where in the end the ground emptied and the crowd was sort of sledging Ricky Ponting for his field settings. And actually a bizarre experience I had once in India where I played in this sort of mock international in a place called Coimbatore in the south of India. And there's about 40,000 people there. And it was a sort of England 11 against an Indian 11, and the Indians lost. And all the changing rooms were sort of a bit temporary in marquees because it was an athletic stadium we were playing in. 40,000 people stormed through these marquees and nicked all the Indian players' kit because they were so cross about India losing. So, I mean, it's a silly story in a way, but it says that when in those countries, if you can get on top, then they do turn their own in the end. But you hadn't experienced that so much, I suppose. So let's move on. I suppose just relating to sort of other players in the world. I mean, you're often grouped, quite understandably, with three other batsmen, Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, and Steve Smith, as the sort of four, powerful musketeer batsmen in the world in all formats. Do you look at how they're going? Do you sort of measure yourself against them ever?
I try not to measure myself against other players. One thing I do is watch a lot of them play, watch a lot of how they go about constructing different types of innings across the three formats. You're looking at three of the greatest players the game's seen, and I think when all three of those guys finish up, they'll look back, or we'll look back at this generation or this period of Test match cricket and see three of the great players of our time. I'm not sure I would put myself in their bracket, to be honest, but what I would say is I watch Kane bat and I look at how he plays, how late he plays the ball, how still he is and correct he is, and how under pressure he really does find a way to trust his defence on any given surface. And I think that's a great quality to have, as well as the skill to be able to do it and to play the ball as late as he does, to mentally be able to not concede confidence to the bowler and be able to trust all of his technique and his ability is something to be admired. You look at Steve Smith and he's just I mean at times he's awful to watch. He's horrible on the eye, but God, you pay for him to have him in your team. He's a fantastic run scorer. I think the way he thinks about the game and the way he manages passages of play is exceptional. How he makes bowlers bowl where he wants them to, and again his self-confidence you can see by some of his idiosyncrasies and the way he leaves the ball, or he's trying to find ways to always get on top of opposition and on bowlers. And I think in the next couple of years, sides will start doing a lot more different things to him and trying different fields, and I suppose trying to make him again think differently about how he's going to score his runs.
Would you do that right from the start of an Ashes series, Joe? Would you sort of go think out of the box right from the start?
Yeah, I mean, you look back at the how we started, the field that we had to him at Edgbaston, and I think for him to get off the mark, we had a leg slip.
You did, yeah.
And it was 2 yards away from Ben at leg slip. It could have been very different. It ended up going for 4, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
But we're talking of if we'd have had him, I think, a yard or 2 yards finer, he could have been back in the shed for naught. And the two Premier players, Warner and Smith, had got no runs. They were 130 odd for 8 or whatever before he started to really put his foot down, and the series could look very different. And it was in the last Test match we tried it a number of times throughout. But last Test match we went back to it, and I was quite strong that's a position that I wanted for him with our attack, and he ended up getting out, caught a leg slip.
I think Jimmy did Jimmy catch it? I think maybe, or maybe it was Stokes.
I think it was Ben.
Yeah.
But I think when someone bats differently, you have to think differently as a captain, and you have to be open to different plans as a bowling group. And I think one thing he's very good at is, firstly, he understands his game extremely well, and he because he thinks differently about the game and he plays differently. A danger ball for someone with quite an orthodox technique doesn't seem to be as much of an issue for him. So I think what you've got to try and think of as a captain and as opposition players is, well, what's his danger ball? What's the ball that he's least wanting to face, and what makes him uncomfortable? So, but the way he's such a brilliant run scorer and his hunger and thirst for big scores is fantastic. And Vira, I think he's the most complete player out of the three of them, if I'm being brutally honest, across the three formats. And his ability to chase things down in the limited overs format and to dissect an innings and to pace it as well as he does, as often as he does, and be not out at the end is extraordinary, really. He's got, as the other two have, he's got a very all-round game, but there's no, you wouldn't say that he's weaker against spin or pace. I think you look at where he scored his runs. He obviously struggled on his first tour to England, but since then came back and scored really heavily in the last series that we played them in English conditions, and similarly wherever else he's been around the world, he's gone on and put in some massive performances. So all that with the weight of India on his shoulders as well. So I think they're three brilliant people to watch play and to learn from. Even as an international player, you've got to look at guys like those three. And even I've always looked up to AB de Villiers as well, especially when looking at one-day cricket. But all you're trying to do is find things that they do, and are there areas that you can add to your game without trying to be them. Implement what you can, and I suppose when you play against them, having that knowledge of watching them and learning from them, can you try and pick apart their games and keep them as quiet as possible within that series?
I tell you what, I had a bit of a text exchange with Steve Smith the other day, and I said it was something to do with the Rajasthan Royals, but we're talking about Jos Buttler, who scored 70 or 48 balls, and he said he scored 70 or 48 balls, won us the game, and never got out of second gear on a tricky pitch. He has got as much innovation and power as only one other person, AB de Villiers. So Smith was sort of almost comparing Buttler to AB. So you can look abroad and look at all these great players abroad, but there's one or two in our own ranks as well who've got some things that you can benefit from.
Definitely, and I think that you look at Jos's game. I think he's been the most complete white ball batsman that we've had ever. Yeah. Because of the way that he can play a number of different scenarios. Whether that's, you look back at the final one day against Australia when we beat them 5-0 at Old Trafford, the situation he came in there and won us the game. You also look at some of the hundreds that he's got of 40-odd balls to set us up and get us to a huge total. He can just demoralise attacks and very quickly swing a game massively in your favour. And to know that there's someone with that ability further down the batting order gives guys like myself, Jason, Johnny, Morgs, Ben a huge amount of confidence to go out and play, and to know that obviously you're not playing in a way which is careless, but know that you at no point
you're not
have to be too nervous about it. Yeah,
you're not constrained.
You can play with freedom. Yeah, and I just think he's a phenomenal player, and I still don't think we've seen the best of him yet. And I think hopefully this summer in Test cricket can unlock doors for him. You speak to, or I saw an interview or a piece about AB de Villiers, and he said it took him 50 Test matches to work out his Test game. I think it'd be very similar for Jos, to be honest. With
I suppose all the sort of compromise of having to play one-day cricket as well, and the kind of the disconnect of the two formats in a way. We should move on a bit, actually. I mean, just one other question that related to all this, and great high points and so on. Is there one moment in your own career which you'd like to sort of have if you could picture one moment in your career and have it on your wall, but maybe you have somewhere, what would it be?
I think stood on that podium in the World Cup final is going to be hard to beat. There was just a sensational tournament, a sensational day, an unbelievable game. But the 4 years that led into that as well, the journey that group of players have been on together, and where we'd come from the previous World Cup. To be able to look round at the majority of that playing squad, and to know that that was 4 years of hard work that we could all enjoy together, and something that we'll have that's the one that we'll always have a special bond for the rest of our lives, I suppose. And I think it's going to be hard to beat that. I suppose winning on Australia, lifting the end on Australia would be a nice way of topping it.
Good call. Shall we do our special, Simon?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
we've got a surprise.
Does Joe know about this? Does Joe know about this or not?
No, he doesn't. It's a little surprise. Don't worry. It's nothing. It's not a sort of. We're not going to get someone sort of popping out of the closet to surprise you.
It's not David Boone batting naked in a mirror. I'm sure.
No, this is a little quiz we've put together, which we've called "How Well Do You Know Yourself?"
Okay.
Right, and we'll start it with a little bit of music. Okay, so that signifies the little quiz section. How do you know yourself? So we'll start with some simple ones, fairly simple ones. Do you know how many test runs you've scored?
7,500.
Oh, you've done yourself out of a few.
It's better that way round, I suppose.
Sorry, that's nearly right. Not bad. You have done yourself out of a few. 7,823, actually. Right. Okay. So we give you half a point for that. Okay. Simon.
I think this is a much more straightforward question. Who was your first Test wicket?
Ed Cowan.
Yeah.
Very good. So that's 1.5 out of 2. How many runs did you make in your first ODI?
None. I didn't bat, I don't think. I bowled 9 overs and didn't bat.
Very
9,
good.
I think I was due to come in.
Excellent. Well done.
Okay.
2.5 out of 3.
Every player remembers their first Test 100. Who was your second Test 100 against?
Australia. My second Test 100. Was it not against Australia?
Oh well, now you put the pressure back on me. I did research this the other day. Sri Lanka at Lords in 2014, 200 not out.
I thought I got 180 against Australia at Lords the year before.
Let me just.
Maybe
dear,
Simon Mann is.
Oh no, this is
okay. Well, you check that one out while we go on to the next one. Okay. Have you taken more Test wickets or ODI wickets? And roughly, do you know which?
Well, it should be
more
Test wickets.
More Test wickets than ODI wickets.
I reckon Test, because I'm the captain, so I should bowl myself enough to get a few wickets.
Correct. It's 29 against 26. So 29 Test wickets, 26 ODIs. Simon, have you got the answer yet? No.
I'm nearly there.
Right. Next question. On which ground did you make your first ODI half century?
Hamilton? Oh, Napier, maybe.
No, Mahali.
Mahali. That was
don't make me have another look.
I reckon Simon Mann's a bit dodgy on the stats for research.
No, I reckon we lost that. We lost that series. When we lose, generally my memory's not as good when we lose. So.
Okay, you've got about 4 out of 6 here so far. Okay,
now,
question 7.
I'm going to have to hold my hand up. Joe's absolutely right. 180 against Australia at Lords. Do you know what I was doing? I was looking at first innings hundreds rather than match hundreds.
Simon Mann gets a right old raspberry.
Yeah, you're right. I deserve that. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so 5 out of 6. We'll give you 4.5 to 5 out of 6, Joe. 4 to go. Who has registered more Test match ducks out of you And Virat Kohli.
I'd have to say myself, batting in England more frequently.
How many do you reckon? How many
really?
ducks do you
You're
reckon?
wrong. How many ducks do you think you've got?
Between 10 and 15.
You've got 8.
8.
And Kohli has 10.
Oh.
And I did check that. So
Mahal is definitely right as well, by the way. Definitely.
So he's only got half. I think you've only got about half a mark. You've got one wrong, definitely. Anyway, okay. So that's you've got the ducks wrong, because Kohli's got more ducks than you. So very modestly, you said you thought you had more than him. How many sixes have you hit in tests? 14, 22, or 29?
14.
You're doing yourself down, Joe. The answer's 22.
22.
Right. 2 more questions to go. Simon?
Where did your parents buy their first house?
So again, you just dipped.
Where did your parents buy their first house?
Did they buy the house? Oh, I think.
Hull? Did you say Hull?
Someone's putting
You don't know, do you?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, so we'll have to give you a raspberry for that. It's Nottingham. This is information supplied by Mr. Matt Root, your dad. And finally, then, where did they go for their honeymoon? Any idea? Is that an unfair question?
I think
the Lake District is right. So, very good. So you've probably got 7 out of 10 there, actually. Not bad. So that's a B anyway. Not bad. A bit more homework required, but B is decent. You certainly did yourself down generally anyway. Okay, back to 1 or 2 more questions then. Simon?
I wonder who sent this question in. I wonder whether it was someone close to the Root family. What was it like being hit for 6 at Headingley in a cup semi-final by your dad?
He didn't tell you that got him out, though, did he? He always seems to miss that part out whenever he relays that story.
I'm not sure who sent that in, but
I'm pretty sure I know who sent it in, and then he'd be high on the list of candidates, I think. Yeah, it was quite a demoralising feeling, I must say. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to repay the favour. He didn't get himself, or he didn't get a chance to bowl, but as mentioned, he does bring that up quite regularly. Thankfully, I'm a batter mainly by trade and not a bowler.
Well, here's a question actually from Jeff Wellstead, who says, do you use yourself enough as a test match bowler? He does say rather cheekily, brackets, Port Elizabeth aside.
I definitely gave myself the best chance to get 5 for that.
It might be the only chance. I mean, you deserved it.
Well, maybe, you never know. Sorry, yeah. Potentially, I could bowl a little bit more, but I think we've got some very talented young spinners coming through that have done a fine job and will continue to grow and get better. And the only way they're going to improve and learn is by bowling more and more and getting more experience. And I can see that certainly being the case with the group of players that we've got at the moment. And there may be occasions every now and again where I could stay on a little bit more, but I look around at the group of bowlers that we have, especially when we're playing in England, and think, why am I wasting overs bowling myself when there's Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, Ben Stokes, Chris Wokes, Mark Wood, Jofra Archer, along with the other spinners, as mentioned. Why am I wasting overs bowling when those guys could be trying to exploit the conditions?
Who is the most testing bowler that you've faced?
There was a guy called Stephen Foster in league cricket who gave me nightmares for a few years. But in international cricket, I would say Ryan Harris he seemed to really have the one over me. There was that one series where I opened the batting, and I thought he was a fabulous bowler. He sort of had the ability to hit the stickers at the top of your bat more often than not, and he was deceptively quick as well. He always felt like he was on you a little bit sooner than you thought. He was very, very accurate, and I think would have played comfortably over 50 Test matches if his body would have allowed him to, and been one of Australia's finest bowlers. Because even that series where we got wiped out 5-0 in Australia, and Johnson took all the plaudits, because he bowled so quick, he made Harris not look quite ordinary pace-wise. But you'd look at the speed gun, it'd be 91, 92 miles an hour, and it certainly felt that way when you were facing it. So I think he was incredibly skillful as well, and intelligent. How he used the crease, yeah, he'd be up there for me as the probably the most testing.
It's very prudent choosing someone who's retired, actually. So no, but you can't big anybody up who's still playing. That's very good. So what about just a couple more questions? We've nearly out of time, actually. But captaincy, how much does being England captain take over your life?
It does take a considerable amount of time and I say energy. It's an incredible. You don't even think you can really call it a job. It's an incredible honour to get the chance.
Privilege, I suppose, is it? Maybe.
Yeah, a huge privilege. It really is. I'm extremely proud to have been able to be England captain, and to still be very much or have the opportunity to try and do special things for this country and lead the team, and a very good group of players that more than anything are a fantastic group of human beings, but extremely talented on top of that. And I think there are a number of things that happen behind the scenes, or as an England captain, that you don't always see, and that do weigh heavily on you over a period of time. And over, you look at guys like Nasser, Varney, and Straussy. It cost them their hair, whereas Cookie, I think it ate away at him in a slightly different way, but it does eventually, I suppose, catch up with you. Thankfully, that's not the case for me at the moment, and I'm very excited about what's to come. But there are a number of things that over a period of time do weigh you down, and you have to find ways to manage that on top of the pressure.
So, like at the moment, for instance, even at the moment, I mean, pesky people like us getting you on shows like this probably doesn't help. But what I mean, on a daily basis, are there sort of lots of things to deal with, even when you're not playing?
Yeah, whether it's at the moment is trying to across the board,
plan
really,
almost,
you're communicating with management and players in terms of what's likely to happen going forward. You're also I think next week I'm going to ring round the group of players away at the IPL, see how everyone's travelling there, and of course in a week or so's time, a lot of the other players will be trying to get back into cricket and make sure that they're ready for what's to come this winter. Things like one thing that we focus quite heavily on, and it's a massive importance to our group, is the culture of the team, and what can we do outside of actually playing and performing to better the game within our country. So there are a number of little projects that we're working on at the minute that can hopefully make a big difference down the tree. You obviously have a lot of media commitments as well, generally more around the games, but as well as trying to plan for a big series away from home this winter and beyond. So there are a number of different things and ways that it can sort of take over your personal life, and you don't necessarily, or you're not necessarily aware of them when you take the job on straight away. But it's so rewarding when things go well, or you see guys come into the team and perform, and you win series together. it's extremely rewarding. And as I say, feel very privileged to get the chance to be England captain.
That was sort of be my last question. Really, is what's the we talked about. Well, you just touched on some of the hard things there. What's the best thing about being England cricket captain?
It's difficult to pick a scenario. I think when you for a long time you've planned to or work towards a series or a way of playing, and a group of players have come together. They've bought into how you want to go about things, and then you're sat at the end of a series having won and executed it brilliantly for a long period of time. That's probably the most rewarding thing, is knowing that a group cohesively have come together and done something very special through or under your leadership, I suppose. And as a captain, I truly believe you're only as good as the players that you've got and that are around you. And it's wrong to take too much credit, but it is extremely rewarding when you've put the work in and you've worked on plans and decisions, and you've got a group of players to buy into it. When you see the group believe in what you're trying to do and the messages that you're putting out there, I think that's probably the thing that gives you the most confidence as a captain. And then when you see it come to life, and you start seeing results, or just seeing improvements within players and performances, then that starts to get very rewarding.
How has it affected your sleep? Are you a good sleeper still? Do you lie awake at night worrying about stuff?
No, I've never been a good sleeper. I'll worry and think about things all the time, and I've tried different things to get better at it. But if I can get 6-7 hours, that'd be a fantastic effort within a test match.
That's more than Steve Smith, actually. He can't sleep at all. He says, I said to him, what keeps you awake? And he said, thinking about Stuart Broad running into bowl with a cover and a mid-off and an extra cover, and thinking, where am I going to score my runs? I mean, he goes to bed at night thinking like that. But I mean, maybe you are a bit like that, but not as bad. I can't believe you're quite as bad as him.
No. Maybe I should try that mindset. I think mine's normally about who's going to blow my front knee off, or am I going to be able to play it with soft hands to get between third slip and gully? So, it's there are a number of different things that weigh on your mind, I suppose, and it's probably those have probably slightly changed having become captain rather than just being about my batting.
So in a way, it's perhaps deflected some of the worries away from yourself. Actually, that can be quite a good thing, I suppose.
In many ways it has. So there's obviously that it will always take away certain aspects, and it will add in other areas as well.
Right. Well, listen, it's your turn to ask a question, because as promised, here is the signed picture of you celebrating 100. Probably was that against the West Indies in the World Cup? Anyway, it's the cover photo from the Cricketer magazine from that month when you won the World Cup. We gave each player who played in the final their own cover, and you've kindly signed that. So someone can win this by entering on the chat the answer to the question that you're going to pose. So what is your question that you're hoping someone will get the answer to anyway?
My question is, how old was I when I scored my first 100 in any?
Okay, and that's any form of cricket. Okay, so how old was Joe when he scored his first 100? Oh my God, there's about 15 people who've already answered, and it looks like we've got a winner already. Actually, we've got Alex Gaywood. Is he a mate? Has he got unfair knowledge? Okay,
I'm not sure he's got unfair knowledge.
Okay, well, Alex Gaywood has come up with the answer straight away, which is...
I know the name.
And the answer is?
11.
11. And who were you playing for?
I think I was playing for my school side, Egbert School.
And don't tell us you scored 100 out of 130 or something ridiculous.
And we actually had a very talented year 7 team from a state school, and we managed to turn over one of the private schools. So it was a good moment. Yeah.
God, I mean, that's a fantastic effort to score 100 at 11. That's a good effort. And was there many more in that?
Were tiny.
Well, yeah, but you still got to stay in. And were there many more around that time? Was that a one-off?
No, that was pretty much a one-off for a few years. I think I got one at 12, but yeah, I think because I was so small and the ground started to get a little bit bigger, and everyone else got a little bit bigger.
Right. Yeah.
If I batted for 50 overs, I'd be probably 60 not out. I just didn't have the power to get it. I'd managed to stay in, but not have the power to get it past the infield. So had to wait patiently for the next one. Okay,
well, great. That's a good question. Obviously, there's a few people saying 13 and 8. Somebody said 8 there, actually, that's a pretty optimistic. And was there a 6 as well?
6, yeah.
Right. 6. Yeah. Graham Hick, I think, scored his first 100 when he was 6, believe it or not. Well, anyway, well done to Alex Gayward. Now, Alex, if you will kindly send me your email if you go to theanalystcomp@gmail.com, theanalystcomp@gmail.com. If you send me your address on that email, and don't pretend you're somebody else, or nobody else on that chat, pretend they're Alex Gayward. Somehow I'll be able to identify you. If you send me your address, I'll send you that signed photo of Joe. So, Joe, thank you very much for that. I don't know if you've managed to find a piece of memorabilia knocking around that you're proud of. Have you got anything to hand?
I have, as asked for. This is actually it was the bat I used for the majority of the World Cup last year.
Okay, so 200s have been made with that bat then?
Yeah, and somehow managed to have the nous to get the whole squad to sign it after about 10 beers that evening. So
none of them are smudged, it looks like, actually.
No, none of them are smudged. So clearly still adrenaline was flowing even at that point.
So was that at the final? That was at Lord's at the final then?
Yeah. I mean, most of the guys came back the day or 2 days later, and we'll sort of said we'll put a load of shirts out and things, and we'll sign each other's stuff. So, but that was the bat I used for the majority of the tournament. Sort of retired it there and then, and
right.
We'll hold that as a memory of as I mentioned earlier, the 4 years leading into it. But what an incredible tournament and final it was.
Oh, well, you'll see more of me at some point, because we just signed a deal to do the World Cup documentary, actually, which means interviewing all of you again. So yeah. I mean, it's going to be a great fun experience retelling that story when we can finally get some time with the players to retell it, because it's a wonderful story, actually, from beginning to end, from through the whole 4-year cycle in a way.
Yeah, I'd happily talk about it whenever you want. It's obviously something that I don't get bored of talking about. So I look forward to that very much. But it is something I'm very proud of, and privileged to be a part of such a great team. And look at the group. We all consider ourselves best mates. All the girls get on extremely well together, and feel like we've got good friendships outside the dressing room, which I think not many sides can actually say that, especially international teams. So I feel very lucky to be a part of a group of players and play at a time where an England squad are so all enjoy each other's company as much as we do.
Well, just final question. What's your plan from now on? And I should just mention, by the way, I did say I would mention this, and there is the Root Academy, isn't there, which you've created with, I think, your dad. And I know he's out in Spain at the moment, sort of looking after it. But one interesting story I heard, sorry, this is a bit of an aside, actually, but one interesting story I heard, we talked a while ago on our podcast, we talked to a coach called Graham Porter, I think, from Australia, who's been working with your academy over there. And he talked about practice. And he said for years, he's always thought practice was in the nets wasn't structured like a match. And he was very impressed that the academy, your academy, are trying to do net practice to replicate a game. So you don't hit thousands of balls. You face a bowler for 6 balls. You play it as if it's a match and try and get into the mindset of actually playing an inning. So is that, and you've done things like you've got that split screen on a video where somebody can copy your off drive and draw their own sort of lines on it to try and copy that. So you've got some quite interesting innovation in that academy, haven't you? And how much time are you able to spend with it?
Yeah, I'm unfortunately not allowed. I'm not allowed. I'm not able to spend enough time with it, to be honest. It's something my dad works extremely hard on, and more than anything, it's about trying to create opportunity and to, I suppose, provide a flat platform for coaches and players and young kids to enjoy the game. It's I suppose our family's way of giving a bit back to the sport, and more than anything is, we want to celebrate good bits of coaching, good bits of play, and you look at if you follow it on Instagram and stuff, a lot of the stuff is from independent coaches and that we'll post because we just want people to get content out there, have kids playing in the garden, at home, whether it be in the house with the softball, whatever it is, find ways of enjoying the sport wherever they can, and obviously we work hard to put things on and coaching clinics or courses, tours, things like that. We've had tours to Australia and India, some camps in Spain, but ultimately it's about trying to, I suppose, get the game out there to as many people as possible and give as many ideas and tips and insight into training and developing as a player as much as possible.
Mm. Well, listen, thank you very much for your time. I mean, if anybody could have a better role model than you in terms of the way you handle yourself as well as the way you play, I don't know who that could possibly be. Your sort of your dignity and your contribution to the game, your commitment to the game, and your family's commitment to the game is second to none. So, and just epitomised by your attendance on this. So, thank you very much for your time. And what's your plan for the next week or two? You're going to try and get back into practice, presumably, are you?
Yeah, the next couple of weeks, I've already started a fitness program, and then I think as of next week, they've got a tent up. I hope, or facilities that we should be able to get back hitting some balls and starting to get ready for the winter tours. So be great to get back into training and start getting ready again. And
in the meantime, console yourself with watching.
As always, it seems to be every winter's a busy winter, but this one looks extremely busy for different reasons. And but all the same, very exciting and great opportunities to do some special things. So looking forward to it. And
do you watch the IPL?
Oh yeah, pretty much every day. It manages to find its way on.
Did you see Johnny bowl out? Jofra bowl out Johnny tonight.
I missed the start of the game tonight. Sorry, the start of the second innings. So
it was absolutely ex-certificate. He knocked over Warner third ball, and then he bowled one straight through Johnny Bairstow as well. Fantastic, brilliant.
He's some talent in some great form at the minute, Joffrey. It's been great to watch throughout the whole tournament. I'm just really looking forward to watching Ben hit some form soon as well, because I think he's round the corner.
He's trying to hit the ball too hard. He hasn't hit a 6 yet in 100 balls pace or something. He'll click.
It'll click. Yeah. But I think actually the English players that have had the opportunity to play have actually done very well. Young Sam Curran at a struggling Chennai has performed very well.
Yeah.
Tom Curran at the start when he got the chance to play, I thought performed well. He scored some good runs as well. And the names that we've mentioned, Jofra, have done well as well as Morgs. Seems to be quite consistent. So yeah, it's been good watch. Been some good games.
Okay, well, listen, thank you very much for your time today anyway, and good luck with everything in the future. Thank you very much to everyone who's attended as well. And as we mentioned on the social media feeds, Stuart Broad has willingly offered to be our guest next week. So look out for that. You can subscribe to it at the Patreon site, www.patreon.com/analyst1. We'll also upload this as a podcast later, some of the best bits of it. So thank you for your time. Simon, man, thank you for your terrible research on Joe's statistics. Cover yourself in, you cover your head in shame. But anyway, Simon will be back with me during the week, and obviously this time next week for Stuart Broad. Meantime, Joe, one more round of applause. Thank you very much for your time again, and good luck with everything in the future. And thank you everyone for watching and listening, and we'll speak to you again next week. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you very much,
Thanks to
guys.
Joe.